All right, so part 2 of today's lecture. This is Thursday, April 16th. We are working through week 10, day 1, and we are looking at chapter 15 with that Beethoven Symphony. So Beethoven Symphony number 5. So we just talked about what we're going to see with Beethoven. This 5th symphony is falling in his middle period, and so we're still going to see a lot of classical traits, but we're going to start to see these changes that lead into what's going to be the norm in romantic symphonic music. So what sets Beethoven's symphonies apart from Haydn and Mozart is the mood, the excitement, more of an urgency to it. He achieves this by maximizing almost all aspects that you can think of with his writing. Higher registers, lower registers, bigger orchestras, sharper rhythms, more accents, more syncopation. Harsher dissonance. Harsher dissonance are going to give you more profound or more obvious resolutions. He stretched forms to their limit. He's still using the sonata style for his piano pieces, but it becomes longer. He still uses the string quartet in 4 movements. He still writes with the symphonies in 4 movements, but new techniques, and again, more length to them. So this 5th symphony is the one that we're looking at today. In your text, the first movement is on page 212, so that's a wonderful guide to follow along here with. And I'll be surprised if you haven't heard this theme. Famous 4-note motive that this theme is based on. It's often called a fate motive, that it's fate knocking at the door. Perhaps Beethoven used that on purpose. Again, this is his middle period where he's going deaf. Perhaps this is his way of feeling or expressing that feeling of losing his hearing, feeling like fate's taking a blow against him. So it's a human narrative maybe of his own life that he's writing. So this is one of his best known, one of his most well-loved works. And there's 3 features that I want us to really concentrate on that we're listening to. First is that rhythmic drive. So it's a very blunt motive. It has sharp rhythm to it. It comes back over and over again. It's changed with harmony. It's changed slightly with meter, changed slightly with accents. One thing that is new, and we will see this as we work into the Romantic era, is motive consistency. So what I mean by motive consistency is this fate motive finds its way into our other movements as well. So he's taking the motive and he's linking our movements together by using the same one. Beethoven's using this to give form to his bigger work, and it almost gives a story as we're working through our movements, with fate knocking in that first movement, with that second and third movement taking the events of that slow movement and then of your dance, and the 4th movement maybe saying that fate's being trampled. It's a little bit of got a military march to it, a little bit of a military sound to it. The other main change that Beethoven does with our symphony is with that 3rd movement. So we saw this 3rd movement change in the classical era. We saw that it became a dance, a stylized dance, so not necessarily meaning to dance with, but more to listen to. We found that they made it longer by putting that trio in the middle. Beethoven's going to keep that. He's going to keep that form of ABA. So still with that lengthening of the trio, but instead of it being a minuet dance, he turns it into a scherzo. And a scherzo is faster. Scherzo means joke in Italian, so it's got a little bit more humor to it. Some people say it's more violent versus that formal or elegance of what that minuet would be. So let's take a listen. I'll point you in the right direction with each of these movements. Of course, please take the time to listen to them on your own. But with this first movement on page 212, I want you to listen for that motive consistency. That's a standard feature of Beethoven, as we said. We hear that first theme in the exposition. We even hear it with the second theme where we get that contrast. The underlying voice, if you hear it, is still playing that motive underneath. So here's your first theme, your fate motive. Your second theme, which is going to be in a different key, different character, is here. Underneath it, listen to how we still get this fate motive. Taking place underneath that second theme. That second theme is major, it's more gentle. As we said last class period, the more a composer can contrast these themes, the more elegant it sounds, the more intriguing it is to listen to. In the development, we hear some eruptions, some modulations. There's many fermatas that then crack of doom, again, maybe relating to that fate motive. There's some fragmentation going on. Your recapitulation comes just like what we would think. There is a little cadenza in it with the oboe as well. Let's take just a short listen and then I'll stop it, and of course you can continue that on your own. So there's that fate motive. Here's your second theme. On the top is that second theme. Can you hear the fate motive underneath? And that takes you into the development. So I have the entire symphony here on one loop or on one YouTube video. So you can stop and play and go back as you need to. The timings are very, very similar. They're not exact. For instance, I stopped it at the development, which would be 1 minute 40. In your book, the development is about at 2 minutes. So it's very close. I'm hoping that's close enough for you to be able to follow along. So here's what I want you to listen for as you listen through these other movements. Movement 2 is a theme and variations. That's very typical, that second movement being a different type of form. See if you can hear how that has a triple meter versus the duple meter of movement 1. It has a very graceful theme in a major key, but see if you can listen and find that fate motive. It is there again. If you look in your text on page 214, it takes you through the second and the third and the fourth movements here. That third movement, think about how does this sound different than that third movement we listened to last period of Haydn? How does this scherzo sound different than a minuet? The fourth movement is sonata allegro form instead of a rondo, so that's a little bit different. Again, motive consistency is what I want you to notice. This is new. Can you hear where that fate motive is coming through again? He reinforces the orchestra. This has a huge ensemble for this movement. Again, this is moving towards that romantic period. There's 3 trombones. This is one of the first symphonies that we find trombones in. There's a piccolo, there's a contrabassoon. So again, he's extending both ends of that register. The other piece that I have for you to listen for, or to listen to here in this 15th chapter, is one of Beethoven's piano sonatas. It's really hard to talk about Beethoven and not talk about his piano sonatas because they are a staple in a pianist literature. And just like his symphonies, there are 32 piano sonatas, they very clearly show this walk through those 3 periods of his life and that transition into that romantic genre or style. His piano music is introspective, it's intimate, it's what you could call chamber music with it being small. And these piano pieces are a little bit more abstract. We see in them, I think with it being one performer, and even more of an exploration of taking these formal themes, these formal forms, and disguising them or loosening the boundaries. He's looking back at Bach with the harmony, but he's taking those forms one step further. He does use sonata form in his sonatas, but the themes in the sections are condensed. So instead of the first theme being 16 measures and the second theme being 16 measures, in this sonata that you'll listen to, this piano sonata 109, the first theme is 8 measures, the second theme is 8 measures, so it's very condensed. Your guide for following this one is on page 216. You're going to see a lot of the same changes as in the symphony. The second movement of this piano sonata is a scherzo. So again, it's faster, it's in a 6/8 meter. Another difference, a way that he's trying to shorten up form, is instead of taking a pause between the movements, you'll notice with this piano sonata, between the second and the third movement, there is no pause, but it immediately goes on. That term is a tocca, and so with a performer playing a piece, you get to the end of a movement where we normally would have that pause. If it says a tocca, they go right into that next movement with no change at all. As you listen to movement 1 of this, and that's what I've put on the canvas for you, I want you to see if you can hear those 2 themes, see if you can hear how they're contrasting in nature, but also notice how much shorter they are than the works we've listened to the last couple of class periods. Notice that there's no bridge between those 2 themes. It's going one right into another. There's a brief development and then a recap. Let's take just a quick listen to the themes. So there's your first theme. Very playful rhythm. We've talked about his rhythm being more driving. Here's the second theme already. One right after another, no bridge in there. And there's moving right into the development. So we've also gotten rid of that repeat of the exposition. Again, how Beethoven is playing with or changing that standard classical form. So again, your guide on 216 will take you through this movement very easily. This is a beautiful sonata. Again, notice the title. You're being told the tonic of the key. You're being told that what type of genre it is or piece that it is with a sonata. You're being told the opus number, how it is being identified as where it is in the composer's output. This is one of his very last pieces that he wrote. and you're being told what movement. I encourage you to search, go to YouTube, find the entire piece, listen to the entire piece, and especially to that second and third movement. Again, for those more romantic changes of the second movement being a scherzo, and that a topic into that third movement. So Beethoven, important person. He's the only guy that gets his own chapter in the book. So very pivotal in our change from the classical style to the romantic period. So these pieces are really worth taking some study and some note about how he really changed the world of music history. The quiz for today, remember, is week 10, day 1. It's open all day from 8 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on April 16th. Thank you.